The Sun is a luminous body, that is, it has light of its own. The Earth and the Moon have no light of their own and are non-luminous bodies. Non-luminous objects are visible only when light is reflected from them. When a heavenly body is obscured from view by a shadow, we call it an eclipse. We all know that the Earth moves around the Sun in an elliptical path called orbit, and the Moon moves around the Earth. During these movements, sometimes the Sun, the Moon, and the Earth are aligned in a straight line. This results in an eclipse. When the Earth comes in between the Sun and Moon, it obstructs the path of light from the Sun and casts its shadow on the Moon. This is a lunar eclipse. A lunar eclipse occurs on a full moon day. When the Moon is completely in the umbra, or the dark inner shadow, it is visible to us as a dull red disk. This happens as some scattered light from the Earth's atmosphere reaches the Moon. When the Moon is totally in the penumbra, or the faint outer shadow, we see a total eclipse. That is, the Moon is totally invisible to us. When the Moon is partly in the penumbra and partly in the umbra, we see a partial eclipse. That is, the Moon is partially invisible to us. This is what happens generally. During the course of its movement, sometimes the Moon comes in between the Earth and the Sun and blocks the view of the Sun and casts its shadow on the Earth. This is a solar eclipse. A solar eclipse occurs on a new moon day. The Moon's shadow has two parts: the faint outer shadow called penumbra, the dark inner shadow called umbra. In a region of the Earth that falls in the Moon's dark umbral shadow, a total eclipse of the Sun is seen. In a region of the Earth that falls in the Moon's penumbral shadow, a partial eclipse of the Sun is seen. Not every eclipse of the Sun is a total eclipse. Solar eclipses can be categorized into two types: total solar eclipse and annular solar eclipse. As the Moon orbits around the Earth, it follows an elliptical path, so its distance from the Earth varies. If an eclipse occurs when the Moon is on the near side of its orbit with respect to the Earth, it will be a total solar eclipse. Only the part of the Earth that lies in the umbral region experiences a total solar eclipse. If an eclipse occurs when the Moon is on the far side of its orbit with respect to the Earth, the Moon appears smaller than the Sun and cannot completely cover it. This results in annular solar eclipse, in which a ring or annulus of bright sunlight surrounds the Moon. During an annular eclipse, the Moon's umbral shadow is not long enough to reach the Earth. Instead, the antumbral shadow reaches the Earth. Only the part of the Earth that lies in the antumbral region experiences an annular solar eclipse. Phases of the Moon. As the Moon circles the Earth, the shape of the Moon appears to change. This is because different amounts of the illuminated part of the Moon are facing us. The shape varies from a full moon to a new moon. Like the Earth, half of the Moon is always lighted by the Sun, and the other half of the Moon is completely dark. On Earth, we see only that part of the Moon which gets lit by the sunlight. When the Moon is in between the Sun and the Earth, we cannot see the Moon. This is because the part of the Moon facing us is in darkness. This is called the new moon phase. When the moon is exactly in the opposite position, the part of the moon facing the earth is completely lit by sunlight. Therefore, we see the complete bright side of the moon. This phase of the moon is called the full moon phase. From the new moon phase to the full moon phase, when the moon appears to be getting larger, we say that the moon is in the waxing phase. From the full moon phase to the new moon phase, when the moon appears to be reducing in size, we say that the moon is in the waning phase. During waxing and waning, we can observe three important phases of the moon. When we see a very thin moon, like this, we call it the crescent phase. This is the waxing crescent. Often you will find two stars close by making a smiley face in the sky. Halfway between the new moon and full moon phases, we see half the moon lit up. This half moon phase is called the first quarter. Close to the full moon phase, we see more than half of the moon. This phase of the moon is called the gibbous moon phase. This is the waxing gibbous moon. Now, let's observe the various shapes of the moon from the full moon day to the new moon day. Immediately after the full moon phase, we see more than half of the moon. This phase of the moon is called the gibbous moon phase. This is the waning gibbous moon. The half moon phase, seen halfway between the full moon and new moon phases, is called the third quarter. The very thin moon like this we see just before the new moon day is the crescent. This is the waning crescent.